Sleep. We spend a third of our lives doing it. Yet we don't know how it works. It helps us face every mental and physical challenge. Yet it takes away our awareness. Is sleep just a state of rest? A reward for a hard day's work? Or are there more profound truths to nature's design? That's a question of science. Life in the 21st century. There's nothing slow about it. Everything's faster and smarter, demanding more attention and more alertness. But exhilarating as it is, this modernity demands a price. Because we're not just becoming a highly developed human race, we're also becoming a highly exhausted one. As everything tells us to go, 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 we're getting lesser and lesser time to simply rest. Sleep. It's one of our body's most essential functions. Just like breathing, eating, and exercising, sleep is something we can't survive without. But unlike them, the mechanism and purpose of sleep are still, by and large, unknown. What's the most basic way to understand sleep? As our bodies descend into this state, we lose touch with the world around us. Our senses become detached from their surroundings. Voluntary muscles no longer respond easily to stimuli. And for most of our time asleep, our breathing, brain activity, and heart rate slows way down. If our bodies appear to be doing nothing during this phase, what makes sleep so important? One way to learn this is by seeing what happens when sleep is disturbed. Sleep clinics like these are a new age phenomenon in Indian healthcare, and they're rapidly gaining popularity. Visitors walk in for consultations for a vast variety of medical problems, all tracing back to disturbed sleep.
सो जाते हैं फिर उठते हैं बैठते हैं सो जाते हैं उठते हैं बैठ जाते हैं सो जाते हैं मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम मैं सोता ही रहता हूँ गाड़ी का ड्राइवर बट आई यूज टू स्लीप
फिजिकल एक्टिविटी कर नहीं पाते वॉकिंग की इच्छा नहीं है
नहीं वॉकिंग की इच्छा भी होती है तो चला ही नहीं जाता मैं बिल्कुल इच्छा नहीं
भारीपन बहुत है
भारीपन
For sleep clinicians, it's an all too familiar complaint. They've uncovered a wide range of disorders, from interrupted sleep to lack of sleep and even excessive sleep.
There are 84 classified disorders which are only happening in sleep. That means they don't happen when the person is in wakeful state. These are called sleep disorders or primary sleep disorders. The other ones are, there are some different body organ systems which actually find the sleep time as a vulnerable time. So there are various heart diseases which actually become they can actually deteriorate or worsen in sleep. There are lung disorders which can worsen in sleep. There are some disorders which are like sugar control and blood pressure, they can worsen in sleep. So these are called sleep aggravated disorders.
By not resting the recommended 6 to 8 hours a day, these patients stand to lose a lot more than just sleep.
We as a society are sleeping worldwide about 1.5 to 2 hours less. So this is called as sleep deprivation. So initially it was thought that this will not really impact any body or have any metabolic changes. But now we know that those people who are sleeping less than 6 hours, they're called short sleepers. And the ones who sleep longer are called, more than 9 hours are called long sleepers. The impact or the effect on the body is the same. So the short sleepers are also at risk to develop abnormal glucose metabolism, a rise in their blood sugar, and an increased chances of developing cardiac related issues. So the impact of this modern society will have an impact on the general health of a person.
The impact is far more serious than tiredness. How we sleep affects our metabolism and weight. It has direct relation to our immunity to disease. It even influences our moods and concentration. So is sleep really as simple as switching our bodies off? Or is there something more dynamic going on to keep our bodies healthy?
You will be surprised to know we the scientists are not having a consensus definition about sleep. Sleep is not a passive state. If you go into the history of sleep science, initially everybody thought that when we are tired and we are taking rest, the brain is simply switched off. That is not true. A sleeping brain is a working brain.
If the sleeping brain is indeed a working brain, what exactly goes on? At first glance, it appears that sleep simply causes the body to go limp and the eyes to close. But a closer look reveals two distinct stages. One where the eyes are inactive under closed lids, the other where they are moving rapidly. Because of these distinct differences in eye movements, sleep is divided into two types. The majority of our time spent asleep is in non-REM or non-rapid eye movement sleep. This is a gentle, restful stage where our brain activity slows down. The rest of our time asleep is spent in rapid eye movement or REM sleep. As the name suggests, it's marked by energetic eye activity. Since this is when our most vivid dreams occur, it's also called dreaming sleep. Humans are programmed to sleep in cycles of non-REM and REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is divided into 4 stages. Stage 1 is light sleep, where we may still be slightly conscious to the external world. Stage 2 is a deeper sleep, where we spend most of the night. Stages 3 and 4 are the deepest sleep, where brain activity becomes the slowest. It isn't easy to wake someone up in this stage. In stage 5, we enter REM sleep. This is where dreams occur and brain activity goes back up again. REM sleep is also known as paradoxical sleep. Why? Because it may look like there's no activity, but the mind within is extremely active. So it turns out that sleep is not as straightforward as once believed. The question then is, what makes sleep so complex? One Indian team is digging deep into the brain to figure out the answer. AIIMS, or the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi, runs one of India's premier sleep research labs. They're taking a neurophysiological approach to understanding sleep. This means they're studying the regions of the brain that regulate or affect sleep. One such region is the pre-optic area in the hypothalamus. Its relationship with sleep goes way back. In the 1910s and 20s, an intriguing new epidemic had Western doctors flummoxed. It was a disease called encephalitis lethargica, commonly called sleepiness sickness. Patients suffering from this disease would fall asleep even if they weren't tired, or they would suffer sleeplessness for days on end until they died. Post-mortem studies found that each of their brains had suffered lesions in the pre-optic area. By 1926, the sickness had disappeared just as mysteriously as it had appeared. But it left researchers with a valuable clue. And the pre-optic region of the brain came to be known as the sleep center. But a few decades later, Western science found a different region to focus on. This was the brain stem, which appeared to be involved in switching on our bodies during wakefulness or off during sleep. According to this school of thought, sleep was a passive state where body functions simply get deactivated. And so it seemed that the spotlight on the pre-optic region had been switched off. However, this wasn't the case in India, where researchers continued to believe that sleep was an active phenomenon where complex mechanisms were at play. From the 1980s onwards, the group at AIIMS swam against Western tides by continuing studies in the preoptic area. And by the early 2000s, they had concrete evidence that the preoptic area was responsible for regulating sleep.
Preoptic area is not only involved in genesis of non-REM sleep, it is also involved in maintenance. And it interacts with number of other areas in maintaining our sleep in different conditions.
Their findings threw up new questions. What was the significance of sleep being regulated by this particular part of the brain?
Preoptic area is not only involved in sleep wakefulness, it is also involved in regulation of body temperature, which is another important function.
And so the AIIMS group has also been studying the link between body temperature and sleep regulation. In order to do this, they conduct experiments on lab rats. The experiments involve two phases, surgical and observational. In the surgical phase, the animal's brain is attached to sensors, and then its preoptic area is manipulated. For this, the animals are anesthetized and prepped to measure three types of activities: brain activity through EEG, muscle activity through EMG, and eye movements through the EOG apparatus. Next, researchers surgically plunge into the preoptic area. They pilot their way through the brain using special maps to guide their instruments.
For that, we have to find out the coordinates from this stereotaxic atlas. This is the area of our interest, preoptic area. So with these 3D approaches, we can go to the particular area of the brain, that is, in our case, preoptic area.
Once inside the preoptic region, researchers alter the animal's nerve tissue. This is done by either removing existing tissues or by transplanting new ones. By altering the animal's preoptic area, researchers will now be able to observe how its sleep patterns change in different experimental setups. After the procedure, the animal is allowed to recover.
We take post-operative care, giving analgesic to reduce pain and take care of the food and water. And once the animal has recovered completely, normal, after 6-7 days, we start recording.
After the recovery period, the animal is ready to enter the next phase of the experiment. This is the observational phase, where researchers can begin to understand how the preoptic area regulates both sleep and body temperature. And so the animal is attached to recording cables that measure brain, muscle, and eye activity and transfer the data to a computer.
This is actually a wake animal, where if you see the activity of EEG shows a very fast frequency, and then slowly the animal goes into sleep. Contrast to the previous slide, if you see in the muscle activity has dropped and hardly any eye movements now. And then the animal goes into REM, that is the rapid eye movement sleep, in which if you see now the brain activity is similar to what it was in the wake state. But the paradoxical thing about this sleep is that EMG activity, the muscle activity is hardly any, but there are eye movements.
Over the next few days, the animal will be observed in differently heated chambers. Scientists will observe how its sleep patterns change with different temperatures. Since its preoptic area has been altered, any change from the normal sleep cycle will be recorded. And when the study is complete, the findings will explain the complex relationship between sleep and temperature. This will also solidify the AIIMS group's strongest conviction.
Now, when we are talking about that preoptic area is important for sleep, nobody was listening. So we are happy that it has been recognized. So we have a holistic approach for studying the preoptic area functions. And our lab is one of the most established lab in the world in animal sleep research.
When it comes to sleep research, neurophysiological studies are only one side of the coin. The other side is clinical research. Sleep clinicians are offered fresh clues by patients whose health has been severely compromised by sleep disorders. In this technological age, poor bedtime habits have played havoc with their health.
The problem that I was facing was that I didn't get proper sleep and a continuous stretch. I used to sleep for about an hour, 2 hours, then I used to take a break, watch the TV or get on my computer, then again sleep for 2 hours.
And so in sleep studies like these, patients are diagnosed by monitoring their sleep overnight. They are hooked up to recording devices that measure heart rate, brain, and muscle activity. Machines also track snoring, body position, and all movements from eyes to legs.
It must contain in its parameters electroencephalogram, or what is called the study of brain. While we are doing so, because it entails the movement of the muscles, so we incorporate electromyogram. Because it entails the study of eyes, we incorporate electrooculogram. Because it entails the study of heart in the time of wakefulness and in the time of sleep, we have to include electrocardiogram or ECG. We are studying movement of chest and abdomen by way of certain belts and certain technologies. We are trying to study how breathing patterns are studied. We study how people make noises. We study them also through a camera to understand what people do or how do they behave in their sleeping time.
But not all sleep studies are conducted overnight in a clinic. There are different studies for different purposes.
People design ambulatory studies. That means we have now recorders which we can put on patients and we can attach their brains. We can record their brain activity, heart activity, lung, chest activity in a recorder which is the size of a small, a pocket size radio, or sometimes even in a computer chip. Sometimes you can do home studies. I mean, you can do small little limited channel studies in which the technicians can go or doctors can go in people's home. In that situation, the advantage is that the patients are studied in their own habitat where they actually sleep.
Such studies allow doctors to understand how sleep energizes the human body. But that's not where its restorative powers end. Increasingly, scientists are asking the question, does sleep improve the efficiency of our brain? In other words, can sleeping well make us smarter?
When I was in college, I read one article that explained that dolphin is a mammal. It never sleeps. So the message was, you don't have to sleep because sleep is a redundant phenomena. And that I did not like. And I found it's very interesting that why nature has developed sleep. It must have some meaning.
The search for this meaning has occupied every waking hour of the team at New Delhi's Jawaharlal Nehru University, or JNU. They're busy exploring how sleep affects our ability to learn. But first, let's understand, how exactly does learning happen? Learning takes place when information is wired in our brains as memory. Just like an electrical circuit is wired for a specific application, nerve or neural circuits are wired to consolidate information as memory. New memories mean freshly wired circuits. The stronger the circuit, the longer the memory lasts. But weak circuits, which break easily, result in poor memory consolidation. The question arises, is sleep a factor in how strong or weak this memory consolidation can be? The team at JNU is exploring this connection by conducting a series of fascinating experiments. In one of them, an animal is taught to associate a specific stimulus with a reward. For example, every time there's a loud sound, it is given a sweet. This happens repeatedly until the animal begins to expect the sweet as soon as it hears the sound. This means it has consolidated the information from two events into a single memory or learning. In the next phase of the experiment, this learning is challenged. First, the animal's sleep is disturbed. It's either reduced or increased. Then, the same combination of stimulus and reward is repeated to check if the animal has retained the learning. In this way, sleep scientists design distinct experiments to study how different types of memory, such as long-term, short-term, and sensory memory, are affected by sleep.
What I am doing, this is a small part of the entire research community. We are trying to understand which kind of memory where sleep is required for consolidation, which kind of memory where sleep is not required. Getting this kind of answer, it will help the entire society to understand the importance of sleep.
Studies like these are beginning to indicate that if we sleep better, we may be able to learn better and therefore be smarter. Significantly, it shows that far from being a passive state, sleep is a powerful lens through which we can study how the brain functions. Not surprisingly, in recent years, a large number of neurology students have focused their studies on sleep.
I'm doing my basics here in the brain. So knowing sleep would be a better way of getting into the whole mechanism. When we are sleeping, it just correlates with our muscle activity as well. So that is my main motto of understanding the brain itself.
I am interested in neuroscience and basically in the consciousness, like what is the biological basis of consciousness. Sleep is also one of my interests, like while we are sleeping, so what are the changes going on inside our brain while we are sleeping?
We should open up more sleep research so that more students will come, the more awareness will be brought to the society, and then we can understand why nature has developed sleep, and people will at least understand that sleep is important, they should sleep, and they should stick with the nature.
Meanwhile, back at the clinic, results of the sleep study have allowed the patient to get the help he needs. He's been prescribed a combination of lifestyle changes and medical devices to assist respiration. With these, he can look forward to a good night's rest from now on.
I use the CPAP. If I take the sleep at the night, I get a very wonderful sleep. My snoring has literally gone away, and I have a sleep of 6-7 hours continuous stretch. During the day, I do not feel lethargic, I do not feel tired. So yeah, it has changed my lifestyle overall. I feel much better now.
When somebody comes to us with a problem, we try and tell them the relationship of sleep with their other body functions. So somebody who is saying that I have poor concentration and poor decreased motivation to work, this we then try and explain why and how is it linked to sleep disorders. For people who are diabetic and whose blood sugars are not under control, for them we give them the mechanism that when the blood oxygen level dips at night, there is a surge of certain hormones which will affect their blood glucose levels. And similarly the hypertension.
Respecting sleep is profoundly important. It is integrally associated with a better quality of life, better health, better life eventually.
If the upward trend at India's sleep clinics is any indication, then sleep medicine is here to stay.
We have a very bright future in sleep studies in India, both in basic and clinical research. Then the importance of sleep in health and diseases has to be conveyed to the general public. We know about diet and about the cardiac problem, we all talk about exercise and good nutrition, but we need to practice about good sleep also. That message has to be conveyed to the public. So I think we have a prominent role in the society to bring future researchers in this field as well as promote sleep medicine in the country.
The day will soon dawn when sleep medicine will be a big part of India's healthcare. With it, the general public will awaken to the importance of good sleep. As for the researchers, their work is just beginning. They still have miles to go before they sleep. If you'd like to share your feedback on today's program, please send your suggestions and comments to Vigyan Prasar, C24 Qutub Institutional Area, New Delhi 110016, or you can mail us at info@vigyanprasar.gov.in.